Hey guys, back for another ruling video for Opus 7 this time. Pretty much on time this time, unlike last time. But again, I had to wait a while to get a bunch of answers on Twitter, especially for one particular card, which we'll get to. But just starting with some overall things. These forwards that say they're treated as a monster in all situations, that means no matter what zone they're in, so field, break zone, deck, hand, you can search them with something that searches monsters, you can revive them with something that revives monsters, you can break them with monster removal, all stuff like that. So yeah, that's different to something like Bart's, who says he has all the jobs, but that's just while it's on the field, because it doesn't say in all situations. These cards, the permanent transformers, they can attack the turn they transform if they've been in play since the start of your turn. That's like monsters normally, but it still applies here. I just thought I'd point that out. That's pretty much all you need to know about them, though. The reprints. So these are basically reprints, but not quite. So they're all functionally identical to the their old forms, although some of them have different names now. They all have Category 5 instead. But the ones that have even the same name, they're like literally identical, which is like Dancer and Black Mage. You can still have 6 copies across in your deck, so you're gonna have like 3 of each because they don't share an ID. So yeah. The alternate CP, the forwards where you pay with a different color to what they are, they still trigger even if you don't pay the correct CP. So for the ones that choose, you can actually like trigger effects that trigger off choosing even if you didn't pay it correctly. So for something like the Summoner in red, you could target an Allure with it without paying Ice CP, and that Allure would still lose its protection even though the effect is not going to do anything. That's all for the overall things, but specific rules, starting with Jekt. His ability checks the damage difference at activation and resolution. So not only, you can't play him at, say, 1 more damage than your opponent and stack Vesoya to get him to resolve. You also can't play him while you're at 2 or more, then damage them in between. So say you somehow, on the stack, played Jekt, bounced it, played it again before the first one resolves. If the second one tries to resolve, but now the damage is no longer 2 difference, then it won't resolve. So you can't do any cute stuff like that. Basically, it will only resolve, activate and resolve, if the damage difference is 2 or more in their favor. So they are less damage than you. Balgavin's special, if a forward has multiple elements and one of them is fire, then Balgavin can't target that one. Bomb's first ability. Those are 2 separate packets of damage, so actually the target will take the 3,000 and also 2,000 from the AoE, so the target will actually take 5,000 total. Also, because it's 2 separate packets, if there are damage modifiers, they modify both packets, so if you've targeted Bomb with Manasvin Warmech, for example, then it will do 5,000 to the target and 4,000 AoE, so the main target will take 9,000 in that case. Meath. You discard at resolution. And also, you can discard Light and Dark cards, because that is not a CP cost. So, effects that let you discard cards, you can discard Light and Dark. Lan, his auto ability. That also, you would pay it at resolution, if you intend to pay. And also, it triggers off itself. So, if you resolve his ability to deal damage to something, that's him dealing damage, so his auto ability will trigger again. So, if you can keep paying for it, you can actually keep resolving it, kind of chaining it. Lulu, again, putting a backup other than her into the break zone is a cost. Not a cost, sorry. It happens at resolution. Suchaspel. Your opponent selects the forward at resolution, because it's not a choose effect. So that's relevant for something like Dorgan. If you play Suchaspel with Dorgan out, because they both trigger at the same time, you get to stack them in the order you want. So you can put Dorgan on top, and then the target will be removed before Suchaspel resolves, which means they won't be able to kind of fizzle it by selecting the one that's going to be removed by Dorgan anyway. Kefka, his first ability. If your opponent has no cards in hand, they have to freeze their forwards. If they have 1 card in hand, they may discard it if they choose, but their forwards will still be frozen because they didn't discard 2 cards. So they will probably, in that case, just choose to have their forwards frozen. But they make that option at resolution as well. Snow, just a reminder that his effect is mandatory. So if they have a single forward out and that forward has some kind of ability that triggers when it's chosen, then you will have to trigger that ability when you attack. Sephiroth, his second auto ability. That checks how many cards they have in hand at resolution. So it'll trigger it even if they have cards, but then if when it tries to resolve, they have 0 now, it will Dawn Freeze that forward. Sarah, her enter ability is actually mandatory to choose as many targets as possible. However, you can choose already dull characters and you can choose your own. So it's not likely that, it's most likely there will be enough targets around that you won't have to dull your own active characters, although it could happen. The second ability, because it doesn't use the dull symbol, that's not under summoning sickness, so she can use that ability the moment she enters the field. And also, a reminder, everything on the left of the columns are cost, and costs must be paid with your own cards, so you can't dull opponents' active category 13 characters with that ability. Terra. You can't kind of combo her with a summon that targets a dull forward to target an active forward, because at the time that you cast that summon, it needs a full set of legal targets, so you must choose an already dull forward to even trigger Terra in the first place. Also, Terra will stack to the summon, so she'll actually resolve before the summon resolves. So in the case of something like Zalira, which doesn't target, that will actually combo with Terra the way you want it to, because you can still cast it, and then she'll stack to it and resolve first, and then when Zalira resolves, that forward will be dull. But what that also means, though, if, say, your opponent has only one active forward, and you wanted to use your Ramu to deal at 7,000 damage, it would be dull by the time Ramu tries to resolve, because you have to target it, that's mandatory, so then it won't deal the 7k. But anyway. Mystic Knight. The ice, reducing the cost of ice summons. That is yours only. All cost reduction effects currently affect yours only, even though a bunch of the cards are not specific about that, which is, the developers have finally admitted that is a problem, and they intend to fix that later. Don't know if that'll happen next set or further down the line, but yeah. Just for now, know that all cost reduction effects, even though they don't always say yours only, they do only affect you. Unalesca. Discarding a summon, if you do that or not, happens at resolution. Chelinka, her field ability buffs her own damage, including her enter ability. So when she enters, as long as she's still in the field when her ability resolves, it will deal 2,000 to all their forwards, not 1,000. Once Chelinka's second auto ability triggers, so she party attacks with Yuri, it doesn't matter what happens to her or Yuri, it will resolve normally. So even if one of them dies, they're no longer partied or whatever, as long as it triggered in the first place, it will resolve as usual. Chocobo. It only dies when that forward dies, if its ability actually resolved. So if the forward is removed in response to Chocobo's ability targeting it, then Chocobo won't die because its ability hasn't resolved yet, and then it will be an illegal target because the forward will have left the field. Alright, Dorgan. Now this one is a bit crazy because the text is very odd and not very specific. I understand why it's written in this way, but I'll just go through a bunch of these rules. You're just going to have to trust me that I have asked all these questions on Twitter and try to make sure this is exactly as it should be. So, if he's removed in response to his auto ability, so he's not on the field when it would try and remove the forward just stays on the field, it doesn't get removed at all. Secondly, it's not an auto ability or a field ability that brings the forwards back. It's kind of a condition on their removal that's constantly checking whether he's in play or not. So the moment he leaves the field, they will come back, and that can happen mid-effect. So, like, you know, if during an effect's resolution he dies, they will actually come back before that effect finishes resolving. What else have we got? If he's blanked, so again, like I said, it's not his ability bringing them back. So if he's blanked, or his effects are removed by something like Minerva or whatever, that doesn't stop the forwards coming back if he dies. Because again, that's not tied to him. It's kind of tied to the way they were removed. Kind of weird, but yeah. The forwards that return, they are treated as being played to the field and entering the field. In fact, those are the same thing. When a character is played onto the field and when a character enters the field are identical. There is no distinction between those. So that means their enter abilities will trigger. If it's currently illegal for that forward to enter the field, then it won't. So if there's already, when the forward would try to come back, there's already a forward on field with the same name, or a character with the same name, or a light or dark character, you don't have the Cosmos of Chaos, all that kind of stuff, then that forward will stay removed, just like if it was revealed from Hildebrand's effect or something like that. However, if it's not currently illegal, so say there are 2 forwards of the same name removed, unique forwards, and they both try to come back, they actually will, because at that time they don't see the other copy on the field, and then because that's illegal for them to both be on the field, they will both go to the break zone. So, again, if it's already illegal for one of the forwards to come back, then it won't. But if it's not already, but then becomes illegal as they all come back, then they will come back and go to the break zone. The offending characters will, to kind of fix the game state. But yeah, that's pretty much most of it. Oh, also, any effect that triggers for when they enter or when they're played to the field. So something like a Remedy, for example, she'll trigger once for each forward that returns, which is kind of funny. Anyway, hopefully that covers everything about that card. It's actually more intuitive than it looks, but yeah, as long as you know that those forwards are entering the field and they're also being played onto the field. Okay. But, if Ronzo Rage resolves on Bart, it steals a single copy of each of his special abilities, and so if that Kamara uses Spellblade and Dual Wield, then he can also use Rapid Fire during that turn. Rem. Again, if you discard, it's a resolution. Vanille. Her first ability, everything that happens besides targeting, it happens a resolution. So, selecting a number, revealing the card, breaking the character. Her Poisonger, it creates a delayed auto ability. So even if she leaves the field, like even before it resolves, if once it's activated, no matter what happens to her, their forwards will dull at the end of the turn. It's just like Sid Rain's auto ability, for example, which kind of puts a delayed auto ability, which is no longer attached to the character that originated it. Galuf, his auto ability, if you pay, again, it's a resolution. You make that option a resolution. Kryl. She lets you cast summons with any CP. She doesn't let you generate CP that you couldn't normally. Why I bring this up is, for example, like Cactuar, the summon, if you pay it with 4 Earth backups, you can't just be like, because I have Kryl, I'll pay it with like 4 different elements, because you can't actually generate those elements. So in that case, you would still only be dealing 4,000 damage because it's being paid with entirely Earth. Tilika. You can discard light cards to characters to play dark cards, and vice versa, because light and dark cards can use any CP to be cast, even light and dark CP, and this is the first time we can generate that like that. Noctis. On the 6th damage, both abilities will trigger. Also, his ability is like Hecaton, Raoban, those kind of effects where it's actually causing the forwards to deal damage. It's not ability damage. So that will hit something like Ishtola, for example, even though she can't take damage from abilities because it's the forwards dealing damage. Frisch, she can reduce her own cost to 0 because it doesn't have that bracket saying cannot be 0. Yojimbo, again, just like Noctis, this and Hecaton, all those, it's the forward dealing the damage, so it's not the summon dealing the damage. Exdeath. If you revive an opponent's forward, even though it entered the field under your control, your opponent's still the owner, so the usual ownership rules apply just as if you take control of it. So when it leaves the field, it goes to the owner's appropriate zone, etc. You can see my Opus 6 ruling video for like more detail on control rules, but yeah. The Emperor, just a reminder that this must choose 2 forwards on entry, so if your opponent only has 1 forward, you can't use that auto ability to dull it because it has to have 2 legal targets. Mid-Previa. When it enters from the break zone, both abilities trigger, so you can deal 9,000 to an active forward, or 3,000 to one and 6,000 to another one. Also, again, because that's not CP cost, it is a cost, but not a CP cost, you can discard light and dark cards to bring it out from the break zone. Agrius. If it reveals a 3 or less cost character that is illegal to enter the field at that time, name clash, light or dark clash, anything like that, it just, the effect stops and that card gets shuffled with the rest to the bottom. It looks like it would stay on top while the others shuffle to the bottom, but actually that card goes with them and shuffles to the bottom. Titus. Just to make sure you know that his activate all water forwards does activate the entire field, including your opponents. Also, that restriction on how you play him is only from the hand. This is like Estinian, those other cards. So you can bring him out from the break zone as normal with like Phoenix or whatever, but if he's coming from your hand, you have to pay with CP that you produced with water backups. And again, that's that means it has to actually be a water backup that produced to the CP. You can't do that with something like Cosmos or Chaos, because even though you're generating water CP, you're not generating it with a water backup. Halicarnassus. This is kind of a refresher on removing abilities. So, it only affects the forwards currently in play. It effectively removes all the text in their text box. That includes all their auto abilities, field abilities, special abilities, even an auto ability that triggers from going to the break zone. It's not like Yu-Gi-Oh! So that ability still triggers from the field, so to speak, even though it kind of activates in the break zone. And so if you use this on like a Viking and then kill the Viking, the zone won't draw. Any effects they gain after it resolves, though, will still remain. So if you've resolved Halicarnassus, it's lost all abilities, then they use Belius on it, it will actually keep the first strike. It won't remove effects that aren't being granted by a field ability or of that character. So, like, transformed monsters will still stay forwards. Camlanort won't revert to Dark. Sid Reigns' delayed auto ability will still trigger even if the target dies, because all those things are not actually tied to the forward's abilities once they're resolved. They're just kind of like a lingering sort of effect on the game. But yeah. Yuna, her first ability, it's effectively like casting it as if you would cast it normally. So it actually, you have to use the correct element CP and the cost reductions from either the summon itself, like Ultima, or other effects, like Dusk, will actually apply. So that's actually pretty cool. Yuri. Just like Sarah, that action ability, it doesn't have the dull symbol in the cost, so it's not under Summoning Sickness. So you can use the action ability the moment he enters the field. Sin. The copy that used the ability must be the one in play at the end of your next turn for it to resolve. If you resolve both Giga Graviton and Paradise, at the end of the additional turn, both delayed auto abilities will trigger, and because they're both yours, you get to stack them in the order you want, so you can actually stack it so that you win the game before you lose the game, which is cool. So that combo does actually work, although it's incredibly expensive and a lot of setup. But yeah, hopefully that covered everything. Sorry if I kind of raced through it a little bit. I speak fast, I know, but I wanted to get all this out, especially before Worlds, because I know a lot of people want to watch Worlds, and it'll be nice to know kind of what's going on, interactions, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers, guys.